Nobody checked on you when you were in the building phase. Not the people you grew up with. Not the ones you thought had your back. Not the ones you would have dropped everything for if they called. When you were quietly working, quietly struggling, quietly trying to figure out how to turn nothing into something. Your phone wasn't blowing up. Nobody was asking how it was going. Nobody was sending you encouragement at midnight when you were tired and doubting everything and wondering if any of this was actually going to work. Just silence. And I want you to sit with that for a second before we go any further. Because I think most people try to skip past that feeling as fast as possible. It hurts, so they move on. But there's something important in that silence that you need to understand before the wind comes. Because the wind is coming. And when it does, everything changes. And if you're not prepared for what happens next, it'll mess with your head more than the struggle ever did. Let's talk about what the building phase actually feels like from the inside. Because nobody talks about this part honestly. You have a vision. You can see where you're going even if nobody else can. And you're putting in the work every single day. Not for attention, not for validation, just because you know it's what you're supposed to be doing. But the people around you, the ones who are supposed to know you best, either don't know what you're building or don't believe in it enough to say anything. So you stop bringing it up. Because every time you get one of two responses. Either a blank stare from someone who doesn't understand why you're spending your time on something that isn't making money yet. Or worse, that look, the one that isn't quite doubt, but isn't quite belief either. The one that says, I hope it works out for you in a tone that means I don't really think it will. And so you keep it to yourself. You put your head down. You do the work in private. You get used to building in silence because silence is all you've got. That is one of the loneliest feelings a person can experience. Not the kind of lonely that comes from being physically alone. The kind that comes from being surrounded by people who don't see what you see. People who care about you, but can't quite connect to where you're trying to go. And you love them, and you're not angry at them. But there's a gap there that no amount of conversation seems to close. That's the building phase. And almost nobody tells you that's what it's supposed to feel like. Now here's where it gets interesting. You keep going anyway. Not because it's easy, not because you have all the answers, but because something inside you won't let you stop. Call it faith. Call it stubbornness. Call it knowing deep down that you were put here to do something more than what you're currently doing. Whatever it is, it keeps you moving when everything else is quiet. And slowly, over time, things start to shift. The work starts to compound. The thing you were building in private starts to become visible. The numbers start to move. The results start to show. The vision that only lived inside your head starts to exist in the real world where other people can finally see it. And that's when something fascinating happens. The same people who were silent during the struggle suddenly have a lot to say. The calls start coming in, the texts, the comments. The people who haven't reached out in months showing up like they were always there. Congratulations. I always knew you had it. I've been following what you're doing. I told people about you. And part of you feels good because validation feels good. That's just human. You worked hard and people are finally seeing it, and that feels like something. But there's another part of you, if you're being honest, that notices something. That remembers the silence. That thinks about all the nights you were grinding with nothing but your own belief to keep you going, and wonders where all these people were during that time. Here's the truth that nobody wants to say out loud. Most people don't invest in potential. They invest in proof. It's not that they're bad people. It's just how most people are wired. They can't see the mountain from the bottom the way you can. They need to see someone else reach the top before they believe the climb was real. And the moment you prove it, they're there, celebrating, claiming they believed all along. And the dangerous thing is you might let them, because you've been in silence for so long that any warmth feels welcome. Because you missed them during the building phase, even if you didn't say it. Because forgiveness is real and love is real, and you're not the kind of person who holds grudges. But here's what I need you to hear before you open that door back up all the way. Their absence was information. I'm not saying cut everyone off who wasn't there during the struggle. I'm not saying become bitter or cold or build walls so high that nobody can get in. That's not the answer, and that's not what this is about. What I'm saying is, don't forget what you learned during the silence. You learned who actually shows up when there's nothing in it for them. You learned who believes in you before there's proof to point to. You learned who is there not because of what you were doing, but because of who you are. Those people, however few they are worth everything. Hold on to them. Protect those relationships. Because people who believe in your potential before it becomes reality are rare. And the ones who only showed up after the win, you can love them. You can be kind to them. You can celebrate with them. But you now have information about how they move. And wisdom means you factor that in going forward. You don't have to be angry. You just have to be aware. Now I want to talk about something that I think is even harder than dealing with the people who weren't there. It's dealing with yourself during the building phase when the silence is at its loudest. Because here's what happens when nobody is checking on you. When nobody is asking how it's going. When you're putting in the work day after day with no visible result and no external validation. Your own mind starts to fill in the silence with doubt. Maybe they're right. Maybe this isn't going to work. Maybe I'm the only one who believes in this because I'm the only one who can't see what everyone else sees. Maybe the silence isn't just indifference. Maybe it's a sign. And that voice is dangerous. Not because it's loud, but because it sounds reasonable. It sounds like wisdom. It sounds like the mature adult in your head who is just being realistic and saving you from embarrassment. But it's not wisdom. It's fear wearing a suit. The building phase is supposed to be hard. The silence is supposed to test you. Not to break you, to prepare you. Because the person who makes it through that silence without quitting, without needing constant validation, without letting the doubt talk them out of their vision, that person is ready for what comes next. The win doesn't just reward your talent. It rewards your endurance. And endurance only gets built in seasons where nobody is watching and nothing is working, and you show up anyway. Here's what I want you to understand about the people who weren't there. God placed every single person in your life with intention, and He removed people or allowed distance to form with the same intention. The silence wasn't accidental. The absence wasn't random. Sometimes God clears the room so you can become who you need to become without the noise of other people's opinions drowning out the one voice you actually need to hear. If everyone had been cheering for you from day one, would you have learned to trust your own instincts? If every person in your life had validated the vision immediately, would you have developed the kind of faith that carries you through the moments when nothing is working? If the path had been easy and loud and full of encouragement from everyone around you, would you have learned to find your strength in something deeper than human approval? Maybe the silence was the most important part of the journey. Maybe the people who weren't there were doing you a favor without knowing it. Maybe God knew exactly what He was doing when He let things get quiet. That doesn't mean it didn't hurt. It did. It's okay to admit that. But pain and purpose are not opposites. Sometimes the most purposeful seasons of your life are the most painful ones, and you don't always get to see the reason while you're in it. So here's where I want to leave you. The win is coming. I don't know when. I don't know exactly what it looks like for you specifically. But if you're building something real, if you're doing the work when nobody is watching, if you're still standing after seasons of silence that would have broken most people, the win is coming. And when it does, don't lose yourself in it. Don't let the sudden attention make you forget who you were in the silence. Don't let the people who appear after the proof make you doubt the ones who stayed before it. And don't let the validation of the win become the reason you keep going. Because if the win becomes the whole point, what happens the next time it gets quiet? Keep building for something bigger than applause. Keep going for something that doesn't disappear when the crowd does. Build because you were made to build. Build because the gifts inside you were given to you for a reason. Build because one day someone who is right where you are right now, tired in the silence, wondering if any of this is going to work, is going to see what you built and realize that it's possible. That's bigger than a win. That's a legacy. The people who weren't there during the climb don't define the summit. God's plan for your life was never dependent on who believed in you first. It was always dependent on whether you believed it enough to keep going when nobody else did. You're still here. That means something. Keep going.